Okay, let's go through page 16. Question 8 says 100 can be written as a sum of two different square numbers. Which two square numbers? So it might be worth listing out the first few square numbers for a question like this. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81. Now it can't be 10 times 10 because that would be 100. So it's going to be from those, which ones of these can I add together to make 100? And it is 36 and 64. Now that is the square numbers of 6 and 8. But it just asks for the square numbers, so 36 and 64 is the answer. 85 can be written as the sum of two square numbers in two different ways. So similar question, but need to show both ways that it can be done. So I'm just going to look at the square numbers from the previous question, see which ones I can add together to make 85. So 1, I can't add 1 to, I would need 84, and that's not a square number. 4 and 81, now that would work. So there's one way that I can show this. Okay, and if my other one was 9, I would need to add that to 76, that's not a square number. 16 I would need to add to 69, which is not a square number. 25 I would need to add to 60, which is not a square number. 36 I would need to add to 49, so that works. So there's the two different ways I can make 85 using square numbers. Question 10. Harriet thinks of a number, she squares it, then adds 11, and her answer is 36. What was her original number? Well, this is a classic algebra equation question. So thinks of a number, let's call it n. She squares it, so it now becomes n squared, and then adds 11, and the answer is 36. So we've got an equation here to undo. What was her original number? Now I'm going to use a balance method to solve this. So I like to draw two lines down the side to separate my working. So I'm going to imagine she never added 11, or another way to think of it is to take 11 off both sides. What's the number she would have got? So if she'd just squared the number, never added 11, she would have got 25. Now what number squared gives 25? Well, what we're doing there is we're square rooting both sides. Square rooting n squared to find n. We're square rooting 25 to find what n was. Now, you might think straight away 5, and you'd be right, but it could also be negative 5 as well. If you think about it, negative 5 times negative 5, or negative 5 squared, also gives us positive 25. So there are two answers here, okay, 5 and negative 5. And we can show that using this clever little sign actually. Plus or minus is what it means, positive or negative 5. Okay, but you can just show it like this as well. Question 11. A square has an area of 225 square centimetres. Work out the perimeter of the square. So, draw a sketch of it. Its area is 225 square centimetres. Now this is where square numbers come from. They make a square shape when arranged in a particular array. If I want to find the length of one of the sides of the square, let's call it L, then I need to do the square root of 225, and we should know that one is 15. So the lengths of the side of this square are 15 centimetres. Now if they're all 15, that means I'm going to have 4 lots of 15, and that will give me the perimeter. 4 lots of 15 are 60, so the perimeter is 60 centimetres. Okay, question 12. James says the sum of the first two cube numbers is a square number. Is he correct? Well, let's try this. The first cube number would be 1, and the second cube number, 2 times 2 times 2, would be 8. We add those together, that gives us 9, which is a square number, so yes, he's correct. Now, the first three cube numbers. So 1, 8, and the next cube number, 3 times 3 times 3, would be 27. what do we get when we add these together? So 9 plus 27 would give 36. So yes, again, we get another square number. First 4 cube numbers. So 1 plus 8 plus 27 we already know is 36. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And 36 plus 64 is 100, which is a square number. So yes, again. Okay, number 13. Between which two consecutive integers, now consecutive means next to each other, and integers means whole numbers. So between which two whole numbers which are next to each other do each of the following lie between? And they've given us an example here. Square root of 53 lies between 7 and 8 because 7 squared would be 49, 8 squared would be 64. So 20, well, we just got to think about the square numbers either side of 20. So I know that 16 is beneath it, that's 4 squared. 25 is 5 squared, so this one lies between 4 and 5. On this one, 9 squared would be 81, 10 squared is 100, 97 is between those, so it is between 9 and 10. 6, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, so the square root of 6 is between 2 and 3. 41, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, so this is between 6 and 7. 130, so 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169, so this is between 12 and 13. And for this one, 15 squared is 225. And this is not one you're expected to know, but 16 squared is 256. So it's between 15 and 16. And on the last question, give an estimate to each of the following, each to one decimal place. Now, they do not expect your answer estimated to one decimal place to be what the actual answer rounded to one decimal place would be. So let me show you how I would typically do these. Square root of 56 I know is going to be between 7 and 8 because 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, and 56 is between those two numbers. Now 56 is 7 more than 49 and it is 8 less than 64, so it's pretty close to halfway between these two numbers, so my estimate would be about 7.5. Okay, and I think that's what the actual answer rounds to, but not all of these I'll probably get right. Square root of 10, so I know 3 squared is 9, it's pretty close to that. 4 squared is 16, so it's obviously closer to 3, and it's 1 away from 3, but it's only 6 away from, sorry, it's 1 away from 9, it's only 6 away from 16. I'd probably go something like 3.2, maybe 3.1. 95, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, it's closer to that. It's only 5 away from 100, whereas it's 14 away from the other one, so I'd probably go something like 9.7. 63, so 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, it's very close to 64 obviously, so probably go something like 7.9. 12 squared is 144 for the next one. 13 squared is 169. It's closer to 144, it's only 6 away, whereas it's 19 away on the other one. So I'll probably say something like 12.3. And 86, and so 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. It's closer to 81. So I'd probably say something like 9.3 again.